What's going on, everybody? It's EricRayweather back here, and in today's video I'm going to be going over the 99 overall players and who was snubbed from the 99 overall rating in Madden 20. So as most of you know, yesterday they finally revealed the last member of the 99 overall club. They released one member each day of the week this past week. I did a prediction video a few days ago and I got most of them right. I knew Aaron Donald, Khalil Mack, and Bobby Wagner had to be locks. And in that fourth spot, I thought maybe DeAndre Hopkins, maybe Antonio Brown, Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes would be the other guys in the mix. I think DeAndre Hopkins definitely was worthy of a 99 overall. I just am surprised that EA actually gave it to him. So there's obviously a lot of talk going around who was snubbed. You know, some people aren't happy with the 4 players that were chosen, so we're going to talk about that today. I'm going to defend the 4 players who were chosen because I believe all 4 of them are absolutely worthy of 99 overall, and then I'm going to talk about some players that I think could also be 99 overall that were snubbed. So first and foremost, like I said, the 4 guys that were chosen, they're all great, right? They're all deserving of it. Now, what I think EA is trying to do with the 99 overall club these past 2 years, now that they're making it an actual thing, they're going to change the players up, even if maybe some players don't deserve to be changed. They're going to change players up. They're going to make it more exclusive because it's a talking point. People are going to debate it. They're going to say, okay, who's going to be in the club? And then once you see who's in it, they're going to be like, oh, well, why was this guy in it last year, but he's not this year? And I also think, I could be wrong, but it seems like they don't want more than 199 overall per position. And in fact, I think that they want every position to have a clear-cut, highest rated guy. So even running back, let's say, for example, there's no 99 overall running back this year. So let's say the highest overall is a 97 or 98. There's probably only going to be one of them. I think they want a distinct bar that is set per position of saying this is the best player, this is the bar you have to meet to be the best player of this position. Now, is that necessarily always going to be correct? Probably not, because you could argue that there's multiple guys that could be considered the best at a certain position, but I just think that is how EA is going about it. So naturally, this year we saw some changes. The only guy that entered Madden 19 as a 99 overall and also entered Madden 20 as a 99 overall is Aaron Donald, and that's because you really can't dispute him. He is probably the most sound, best player in the league at what he does. He is already considered to be a Hall of Famer based on what he's done so far. That's how good he is, so you can't take him out of that, right? But let's look at what they did. So they removed Antonio Brown. I'm sure he's probably like a 98, and they moved DeAndre Hopkins up to a 99. But the thing is, if you look at Antonio Brown's stats, he didn't really do anything to warrant being removed from the 99 overall club, in my opinion. I feel like he should still also be a 99 overall, because if you look at last year, he went down about 200 yards, but he went up 6 touchdowns, so that definitely at least balances out, right? He still was a monster last year. Now, I think what EA does when they do ratings, they take into account 3 things. Of course, they look at the stats. They do watch game film, I know that for sure. And they also, I really believe, take in Pro Football Focus rankings. Now, not that Pro Football Focus is the end-all, be-all, and that they're automatically right, but they're a pretty good bar, you know, ranking to know who's who at the position. Now, Antonio Brown, for example, last year was the 26th ranked wide receiver by Pro Football Focus. Now, we know he's not the 26th best wide receiver in the league. He's still top 2, without a doubt. But that just means on film, you know, during his games where they watched him, there were some things that he didn't do as good as he normally does. There were some inconsistencies, but he's such a good player that even when he's not at his best, all around, all the time, he's still putting up monster numbers. So he should still be a 99 overall, in my opinion. But I think, like I said, they want to change these things up, make them talking points, and kind of, you know, if they're going to change up certain positions each year, they're going to have to remove some guys and add new ones. That's just, I think that's how they're going about it. So that's why I believe Antonio Brown got snubbed. Now, the next player that I think got snubbed that should still be a 99 overall is absolutely Luke Kuechly, without a doubt. Now, Bobby Wagner should also be a 99 overall. I'm seeing a lot of people actually not agreeing with that one, and I feel like that is just absolutely ludicrous. Bobby Wagner is probably the best linebacker in football, along with Luke Kuechly. They're both, I think, equally as good. Now, if you want to go by Pro Football Focus rankings last year, Luke Kuechly was the number 2 rated linebacker. Who was number 1? It was Bobby Wagner. So it adds up. If you look at their stats, neither of them fell off. They played just as good as they normally do, and that's why I think Luke Kuechly got snubbed. I'm more than sure he's going to be like a 98 overall, but he should have stayed 99 as he was entering last year, because he did not have really a down year. At least statistically he didn't. I'm not going to sit here and act like I've watched all the film on Luke Kuechly, but it's hard for me to see him not performing up to his normal standard, because if you look at the stats in the Pro Football Focus rankings, it would say that he did what he normally does. So he should have stayed at 99 overall in my opinion, but again, I think they just want that one definitive guy per position. Now, moving on, those are the two, in my opinion. If there were two guys that were snubbed, those are the two guys. Now, these other names, I think you can all argue. J.J. Watt is going to be the next one on my list. So, J.J. Watt obviously was a 99 overall in past Maddens. He is one of the best defensive linemen we have ever seen. But he had a couple years where injuries took him out early. He really couldn't play very much. So I understand you have to kind of bump him down based off that. He hadn't been on the field a lot in 2 years. But last year he came back, played a full year, was healthy, and he dominated. He played just as good as he played when he was a 99 overall. He registered 16 sacks last year. Was an absolute monster. Was the same J.J. Watt we've always seen. So not really sure how he doesn't get 99 overall again. I'm sure he'll be 97, 98 range, but I think, again, it goes back to they want one player per position. So in this case, Khalil Mack is the edge rusher who got the 99 overall. Yes, he's more of a linebacker, and J.J. Watt is an actual defensive end, but they both play the edge rush position. Now, J.J. Watt, according to Pro Football Focus, I believe was the number 3 edge rusher. So he was up there. Grading-wise, he was good. Statistically, he was a monster. Kind of feel like he still deserves to be in the 99 club. The only doubts we had about him were those injuries, but when he finally was able to get back healthy, he looked exactly like he was when he left. Now, the next guy on the list is Tom Brady. Obviously, he's a staple of the 99 overall club. He entered last year as the 99 overall, and a lot of people were mad that he wasn't 99 overall this year. This one I don't think is a snub. I think it's fair, because if you look at him statistically, he had a bit of a down year last year. He did. Was still great, still won the Super Bowl, but it was a down year. His touchdowns were a little down, and his interceptions were a little up. Just the facts. He threw, more interceptions than you typically see Brady throw. Some of those weren't his fault, we'll be real. Some of those came on tips, was a wide receiver's fault. But regardless, he definitely wasn't as good as he had been in some of the previous years. So I'm actually fine with him not being a 99 this year, even though he won another Super Bowl. But if we're being honest, in that Super Bowl, the defense won that more than the offense did. So I'm okay with that one. The next one on the list is Patrick Mahomes. A lot of people thought he should be 99 overall because, of course, being the cover guy, a lot of times that usually means you'll be a 99 overall. He also was the MVP and Offensive Player of the Year. He had the best season of anybody last year. This one, again, I don't think is a snub, only because this is really his second year. He played one game his rookie year, so this is really his second year, and I'm okay with a second-year player not being a 99 overall yet, despite how good they were the year before, because I think a player's overall rating, I think it should factor in the last 2 to 3 years. It shouldn't factor in their whole career. This isn't like your entire resume going into your rating, but it should factor in more than just the last year, because consistency is important. We've seen many players have one crazy year and then fall off and never reproduce that, and that's the reason I'm okay with Mahomes not being a 99 overall. If he does what he did last year again this year, or even anything close to that, even if he does 75% of what he did last year, I think he's easily a 99 overall next year. The next player I want to talk about is Travis Kelce. This one is somebody I saw mention this guy a lot. And at first I was like, I don't really think he's 99 overall. But then I looked into it and I'm like, you know what? It makes sense, because he's the best tight end in football for sure now. Zach Ertz and George Kittle are very close, but Travis Kelce is definitely a cut above the rest. If you look at Gronkowski, right? Because Rob Gronkowski was a 99 overall entering last year. And if you look at his season before last, if you look at his stats, right? 2017 season. Him and Kelce had about the exact same seasons, pretty much identical. And he came into Madden 19 as a 99 overall, and Kelce came in, I'm not sure what he came in as, but Kelce obviously is a younger player, so we need to see more consistency with him. Fine. Now you come to the next season, and Kelce puts up one of the better tight end seasons we've seen in a while. 1,300 yards, over 100 receptions, 10 touchdowns, and he doesn't come into this year at a 99 overall. If you look at his past 3 seasons, over 1,000 yards every season. That's hard to do for a tight end. His last 2 seasons, 10 touchdowns, 8 touchdowns. If you look at what Kelce did last year, That's a better season than Rob Gronkowski has had in about 7 years. He's only got 1 year that's better than that, and that's all the way back in 2011. So if Gronkowski was a 99 overall based on, let's just say, his previous 3 years coming into Madden 19, then Kelsey, by that same criteria, should be a 99 overall coming into Madden 20. And if you look at his Pro Football Focus grade, it was high as well. 3rd ranked tight end behind George Kittle and actually O.J. Howard, which is crazy. O.J. Howard was the number 2 ranked guy. Not that he's a bad player or anything, but it's just, you would probably expect Zach Ertz or somebody to be in that spot. But Kelsey was number 3. So he definitely, I think, deserved that 99 overall nod after looking into it. Now, the next player is going to be Todd Gurley. A lot of people thought he was snubbed as well, and I do think he'll be the highest rated running back for sure. If you look at the season he had the last couple years, he definitely did, enough to be a 99 overall. He's the best running back in the league. There's, a lot of guys on his heels, but he's kind of just slightly above the rest. I think the reason they didn't give it to him is because we know towards the end of the season he didn't play as much, the injury concerns, and now we've heard going into the future that he's probably not going to be a lead back anymore. He's going to probably split carries for the rest of his career because he does have those health concerns. He's had those injuries early in his career that is kind of starting to slow him down a bit. So I'm going to assume that's why he didn't get 99 overall. But if we were just going off what he did the last 2 years statistically, he was, in the MVP conversation both of those years, at least last year up until he started, missing time. He's put up the numbers to be that, but I understand why he's not, and I do think he'll still be the number 1 running back. Now, the last guy on this list is Julio Jones. I don't believe he's ever been a 99 overall in Madden. Correct me if I'm wrong. Every year, he's the name I hear the most about being snubbed. And you know what? I think this year, looking into it, right, I believe he was the number 2 or 3 ranked wide receiver on Pro Football Focus. Now, DeAndre Hopkins was number 1, so it really adds up with DeAndre Hopkins. You look at his stats, you look at his Pro Football Focus ranking, he was number 1 wide receiver. His stats the last 2 years are absolutely off the charts. Like 1,300 yards, 1,600 yards, 11 touchdowns, 13 touchdowns. Hopkins deserves it as well, but when you look at Julio Jones, it's hard to argue against him, having it as well. Yes, his touchdowns are lower. That's really the only knock. Of the 3 monster wide receivers that are Antonio Brown, DeAndre Hopkins, Julio Jones, and I guess you could probably throw Odell Beckham into that mix as well. The only knock on Julio is that his touchdowns are just significantly lower than the other guys. He's only had double-digit touchdowns once in his career, and that's back in 2012. But the yardage that this guy puts up, I think more than makes up for it. This guy gets 14 to 1,500 yards in his sleep. You look at his last 5 seasons, 1,600 yards, almost 1,900 yards, 1,400 yards, 1,400 yards. Last year, almost 1,700 yards. That is just insane. I believe all time he's number 1 in yards per game for a receiver thus far in his career. Just absolutely insane. I think when you look at that consistency, also the Pro Football Focus rankings, also the film on him, there's really not many faults in his game at all. I think with those 3 wide receivers, they should all be 99. AB, Julio, and Hopkins, all 3 really deserve to be 99 overall. They're all that good. I understand you want the bar set with one player, but it just feels wrong to have one player there and not those other 2 guys because they're all so good. So that's all I wanted to say on the subject. Those are my guys that I wanted to specifically touch on. Let me know below what you think about the rankings. Who do you think got snubbed? Do you think the players that were chosen were correct? Let me know below, and as always, I will see you guys next time.